Hello and welcome to the show, everyone, or as they say across the pond, hello, you absolute bunch of wankers. Today we're diving headfirst into something that's about as fun as a root canal without anesthetic UK immigration. Now you might be thinking, why are we talking about this? Is there a new season of Love Island featuring only people on student visas? Sadly, no. The UK is about to go through an immigration shake-up so dramatic, it makes Brexit look like a particularly dull episode of EastEnders. We're talking potential scrapping of ILR, citizenship dreams going up in smoke, and enough bureaucratic jargon to make your head spin faster than a Boris Johnson U-turn. Major breaking news. The UK is set for a major immigration shake-up in 2025. No more ILR, citizenship at risk. Could this mean mass deportations? Stay tuned as we uncover all the facts and what this means for you. Right, let's get down to brass tacks, shall we? ILR, or Indefinite Leave to Remain, is basically the UK's way of saying, all right, you've jumped through enough hoops, you can stay here indefinitely. It's the golden ticket to living, working, and eventually maybe even becoming a full-blown tea-sipping, crumpet-consuming Brit. Think of it like dating someone for years, finally getting married, and then realising you've also inherited their crippling debt from that failed llama farm venture. It comes with responsibilities, but hey, at least you're in, right? For many immigrants, ILR has been the stepping stone to UK citizenship. It's meant years of working hard, paying taxes, and generally not being a nuisance, at least not a big enough one to get deported. It's the culmination of a long, arduous process, kind of like trying to get a straight answer out of a politician, only with slightly less disappointment at the end. Now, once you've got that shiny ILR, you can think about applying for citizenship. This involves more paperwork, tests and fees, obviously. Because let's face it, the UK government loves a good fee. They're like a Dickensian street urchin with a penchant for bureaucratic forms. But hey, endure all that, and you get a fancy new passport, the right to vote, and the privilege of being just as confused about British politics as the rest of us. Historically, this whole process has been, well, let's just say it's been more welcoming than a Nigel Farage campaign rally. But now, the winds of change are blowing, and not the kind that carry the sweet scent of fish and chips. Here's the kicker, folks. The UK government, in their infinite wisdom, have decided to tinker with the immigration system again. It's like watching someone try to fix a leaky faucet by hitting it with a hammer. You know it's not going to end well, but you can't look away. The big rumour on the street, whispered amongst immigrants and pigeons alike, is that ILR might be getting the axe. Yep, gone, vanished, as elusive as a decent kebab after midnight. Now, the government hasn't come right out and said this, because that would be far too straightforward. Instead, they're talking about modifying and reforming the system, which in politician speak could mean anything from adding a few extra forms to launching a full-scale assault on anyone who dares to dream of a life with better dental care. They're talking about stricter requirements for permanent residency. Think higher salary thresholds, so high you'd need to be a Premier League footballer just to qualify. They want proof of English proficiency that would make Shakespeare himself blush. And don't even get me started on the continuous residence proof. You'll need a spreadsheet longer than the Bayeux Tapestry just to track your movements. And here's the real gut punch. The automatic pathway to citizenship for migrant workers, students and skilled professionals? Yeah, that might be going the way of the dodo too. So all those doctors and nurses who moved here to help prop up the NHS, those engineers building bridges and whatnot, those bright young things studying at our universities, they might find themselves stuck in limbo, their futures as uncertain as the British weather in April. So what happens if ILR does get the chop? Well, it's not like the government is going to round up every immigrant and ship them off to the Isle of Man, although, knowing this lot, I wouldn't rule it out. But it does mean that thousands, if not millions of people could be left in a precarious position. They could be forced to leave the UK, uprooting their lives and families, all because some bloke in Westminster decided it was time for a change. Let's face it, the UK hasn't exactly been the most welcoming host in recent years. It's like that friend who invites you to a party, then spends the entire night complaining about how crowded it is. And with these proposed changes to immigration, well, let's just say the welcome mat is being rolled up faster than you can say Brexit means Brexit. So it's hardly surprising that many migrants are starting to look elsewhere. Canada, Australia, Germany. Countries that actually seem to value skilled workers are looking mighty tempting right now. It's like swapping a lukewarm cuppa for a steaming mug of, well, anything really. And who can blame them? Why stick around in a place where the rules of the game keep changing, where you're made to feel like an outsider, when there are other options out there? But here's the thing, the UK needs immigrants. We rely on them to fill crucial roles in our workforce, from doctors and nurses to engineers and teachers. Without them, the NHS would collapse faster than a house of cards in a hurricane, and the economy would grind to a halt. It would be like trying to run a marathon with a sprained ankle and a severe case of the hiccups. Possible, but not pretty. So, the UK government is faced with a dilemma: continue down this path of tighter immigration controls and risk a mass exodus of skilled workers. Or, and I know this might sound radical, but bear with me, they could, try being a bit more welcoming. Imagine that. It's like choosing between a plate of delicious, nutritious vegetables or a bucket of deep-fried, artery-clogging lard. The sensible choice is clear, but something tells me this lot might just go for the lard. Who will be affected? Are you at risk? Let's talk about who's going to feel the brunt of these changes, shall we? Because it's not just a few high-flying CEOs who are going to be sweating bullets. First up, we've got our skilled workers. Those lovely people who keep the NHS from turning into a medieval plague ward. You know, the ones on those health and care worker visas? Well, they might as well kiss their dreams of settling down in the UK goodbye. Getting permanent residency? More like Mission Impossible, mate. Then we've got the students, those bright young minds who flock to the UK for our world-renowned education system. Or, the pubs. Either way, they bring in a lot of money and fresh perspectives. But under these new rules, their chances of staying in the UK after graduation are about as slim as Boris Johnson telling the truth without being forced to. It's enough to make you want to drown your sorrows in a pint or two or three. And let's not forget about our entrepreneurial types, the business migrants and self-employed folks who come here to chase their dreams and contribute to the economy. Well, they might as well pack up their dreams and shove them where the sun don't shine. Because with these restrictions on entrepreneurship, starting a business in the UK is going to be about as easy as herding cats on a unicycle. Now you might be thinking, what about the people who already have ILR? Are they safe? Well, in the immortal words of every dodgy politician ever, that's a very good question. The truth is, nobody really knows. The government has been about as clear as a mud pie on this one. So to all our ILR holders out there, I say this: stock up on biscuits, batten down the hatches, and prepare for a bumpy ride. And just when you thought it couldn't get any worse, remember those heartwarming stories about families reuniting after years of separation? Yeah, those might become about as common as a unicorn sighting in Trafalgar Square. Family visas could become harder to get than tickets to Glastonbury, and that's saying something. And as for asylum seekers and those seeking humanitarian visas, well, let's just say the door isn't exactly being flung open wide, more like cautiously nudged ajar with a 10-foot pole. So yeah, it's not exactly a rosy picture, folks. It's more like a picture painted with shades of bureaucratic grey, with a few splashes of anxiety and despair thrown in for good measure. What can you do? Best alternatives for migrants. All right, so the UK might be turning into a bit of a bureaucratic nightmare. But chin up, Buttercup, because there are other fish in the sea, or in this case, other countries that would love to have you. It's like realizing your favorite pub has gone downhill, but then stumbling upon a hidden gem with better beer and friendlier staff. Let's start with Canada, shall we? Those friendly Canucks up north are practically begging for skilled workers. They've got a points-based immigration system called Express Entry that's about as straightforward as it gets. You rack up points for things like your age, education, work experience, and language skills. And the best part, if you're a healthcare worker, you're practically guaranteed a spot. It's like winning a golden ticket to a land of maple syrup, poutine, and free healthcare. Then there's Germany, the land of beer, bratwurst, and surprisingly efficient bureaucracy. They're crying out for skilled workers, especially in the engineering, IT, and healthcare sectors. And their immigration system is surprisingly welcoming, with several visa options for skilled workers and their families. Plus, once you're there, you can enjoy the benefits of a strong economy, a high quality of life, and a public transportation system that actually works. Take that, Southern Rail. And let's not forget about Australia. the land of sunshine, beaches, and more venomous creatures than a Quentin Tarantino film. They've got a points-based system similar to Canada's, and they're always on the lookout for skilled workers, particularly in the healthcare, engineering, and IT sectors. Plus, you can spend your weekends learning to surf, cuddling koalas, from a safe distance, mind you, and trying not to get eaten by a giant spider. So there you have it, folks. The UK might be closing its doors, but there are plenty of other countries out there ready to welcome you with open arms. It's time to dust off your passport, pack your bags, and explore the world. Who knows, you might just find a new home that's even better than the last. Final thoughts. Will the UK reconsider? Now you might be wondering, will the UK government actually go through with all this? And honestly, who bloody knows? This is the same government that thought it was a good idea to have a party during a lockdown, so their judgment isn't exactly what you'd call sound. But here's the thing, they're facing a lot of backlash over these proposed changes. Migrant communities are understandably up in arms, businesses are worried about losing valuable employees, and even economists are scratching their heads wondering what genius came up with this plan. It's like they've accidentally set fire to their own trousers and are now desperately trying to put it out with a teaspoon. So is there a chance they might back down? Well, stranger things have happened. Remember that time a raccoon scaled a skyscraper? Or when that guy ate a whole airplane? My point is, never underestimate the power of public pressure. Petitions are being signed, legal challenges are being mounted, and politicians are being bombarded with angry letters, emails, and probably the occasional strongly worded carrier pigeon. So, it's not over till the fat lady sings, or in this case, until the government announces its final decision. But until then, stay informed, stay engaged, and for God's sake, if you see a politician, offer them a biscuit. They can't resist a good biscuit. And who knows, it might just soften their hearts enough to see some sense. Outro. Well, folks, that's the UK immigration situation in a nutshell. It's messy, it's complicated, and it's enough to make you want to emigrate yourself. But remember, knowledge is power, and the more informed you are, the better equipped you'll be to navigate this bureaucratic maze. So if you're planning on moving to the UK, or if you're already here and wondering what the future holds, don't bury your head in the sand. Do your research, explore your options, and remember, there's a whole world out there just waiting to be discovered. And hey, if you've got any questions, comments, or strongly worded opinions, feel free to share them in the comments below. We're all in this together, folks. Let's try to make sense of it together, one confused rant at a time. Subscribe to GK Health Passport for the latest immigration updates. Comment your thoughts. Will the UK reverse this decision? Join our community and explore alternative visa routes. Links to resources, visa application websites, and alternative immigration options.